Hi, it's Roger Coyne here. This case study is about idea generation via exploration of VecViz analytics alongside non-VecViz analytics as facilitated by the OpenBB workspace. So here we're actually on OpenBB's complementary comparison dashboard available to free tier users. It's pretty cool. It has some percentage changes over periods going out 1 year as P ratio, and you can set a watch list and probably have like 40 tickers in there, maybe 50. And what I did was I went to options and copy to VecViz data table. And so I did that and came over quick. Here's the VecViz data table. I filtered this to just the 21-day horizon, just the most recent close, which was August 26, 2025, and which most of this data on the watch list that we pulled in will correspond to. And I have a number of fields here. And what I did was I set a prompt for the OpenBB AI Copilot, asking it to draw the tickers from the data table that match those in the watch list, and pull in their price probability percentiles and V score, and create a new table of that alongside P ratio and also a composite price change value that I call momentum. That's basically going to weight the weekly price change more than the monthly price change, more than the yearly price change. And so it did that, and you can follow the step-by-step reasoning, the SQL query, etc. And it did a nice job. It gave it to me here. I exported it to this widget here. And so let's just make our screen big. And so here we have the tickers from the watch list with the VecViz data, these price probability percentiles, the P-score, alongside the P ratio from OpenBB's widget and this momentum indicator that we created from these price change percentiles in the OpenBB widget. And we can filter this if we wanted to, column by column, equals, does not equal, greater than, less than, etc. But before we set a filter, lots of times it's nice to explore what the data looks like, and a great way to do that is via scatter charts. And so what we did was we duplicated this table, and we created a scatter chart from it. Here's the fields we selected for each scatter chart: momentum and the EDB, or expected downbody return. We'll go back to the chart, and we have momentum on the x-axis and the EDB return on the y-axis. EDB return, as a reminder, is the probability vector model probability weighted average price between the most recent closing price and the vector model 95th percentile to the downside. And so, sort of the expected body absent, the expected value absent the tail events over a 21-day horizon. And so that's, these returns go from 0 to like -15 x-axis. And so, you have the momentum. And so, theoretically, you would think you would want, strong momentum with low downside return. And you have some CVS here, HCA, some of the home builders, Generac. Okay, that's good. Well, what about momentum relative to the expected up body? How much room for continued upside is left? And so we did that here. We filtered through this. You can select the columns you want here in your scatter chart, and we picked expected up body, which is the vector model probability weighted value between the most recent close and the vector model 95th percentile to the upside. And we see those CVS, has strong momentum and had a low expected down body. It also has a kind of a low expected up body. Here the home builders, look a little more promising. Again, still strong momentum. Maybe Micron starting to pick up here. What Micron might pick up here? let's see. There it is. What about the P ratio relative to the expected down body return? So here's the P ratio on the y-axis, expected down body on the x-axis. Going from 0 to minus 15. This is P is going from 0 to 40. So, P ratio lower is generally better, but you don't want too low because there's some issue with the growth outlook. And certainly if you don't want a lot of downside. So, tickers in this area, look a little problematic. Tickers, with very high P ratios, it could be okay if there's a lot of growth, and if there's low downside, some of these can be interesting. Low P ratios and low downside, that could also be interesting. Maybe there's some growth issues, but maybe it's fully priced in at this point. But maybe it's the middle. That's kind of the safest area in terms of P's. And again, we see Micron right there, kind of in the middle. So what about P ratio versus V score? Okay, so the V score, is the vector model based forward price performance ranking. It goes from plus 12 is most attractive to minus 12, and it's based entirely on closing prices. All vector model analytics are P ratios, valuation, earnings do not factor in at all. So there's really not any relationship here. So this is kind of interesting. Ideally you would want a V score above 0. With again not necessarily the lowest P ratio, maybe not the highest, maybe something in the middle. And here we have Micron. So kind of ticker that keeps popping up again. And then let's look at momentum, our momentum score versus the V score. A little bit of a relationship here between the two. Certainly not perfect, far from it. But again, where is the ticker we keep running into? Micron, kind of right here. Good momentum, decent V score.